Francisco's 25th Film Festival is kicking off next month, and one of the screenings will be unlike any other. So joining us live to talk about this is Paul D. Miller, aka DJ Spooky. Good morning. Thanks for waking up with us.
Hey.
Okay.
Hey, morning. How you doing?
I'm good. So I just have to admit, when I was reading this, and I was like, The Birth of a Nation remix, not this movie. What is happening here? And I don't know if you've gotten that reaction with a lot of people who are like, what is he doing with this movie?
Okay, well, just to clear the air for everybody, I can assure you, first and foremost, I'm not a Klansman.
Okay, good.
But,
check.
you know, the film is kind of like the DNA of a lot of early American cinema. And the way that D.W. Griffith set up kind of like this revisionist history we actually are encountering right now, obviously, with everything from critical race theory on over to the kind of uncertainty the pandemic has put in the political process, whether it be the election kind of sense of, it's the first one to show like a fraudulent election, and it was basically showing African-American vote being suppressed. So the more things change, the more they stay the same. So I thought it would be an interesting thing to do kind of a meditation on that as a DJ and as an artist. And, you know, it's the politics of our time is about history on a lot of levels right now.
So what is this going to look like?
Well, you got to imagine the film is from 1915, so it's an early black and white film. I've worked with some San Francisco legendary musicians called Kronos Quartet, and if you guys don't know them out there, they are from your zone. I'm a New Yorker, and so basically what I do is I do downtown electronic music and hip hop. So a lot of my stuff is cinematic. And what I'm going to be doing is having a string ensemble, because I write classical. The string ensemble will be working with my beats, and I'll be rescoring the film live. And we're editing the film and projecting different versions of the different scenes throughout the concert hall. So it's a multimedia concert. Let's put it that way.
This is exciting. How do you anticipate people connecting with this? Because they are seeing parts of the original film from 1915, but in a totally different context.
Yeah, I mean, the racial politics of our era is always kind of a smoke and mirrors situation. I'm a big fan of Nicole Hannah-Jones' 1619 Project. And the way that we think about the American cultural landscape and memory is always revisionist. America has a deeply troubled relationship with history. It's kind of, it's not really Orwellian, but if you think about 1984, the book that George Orwell wrote, you know, racial politics is in the center of the eye of the storm right now. It just seems like how film can be used to change people's perception is really a powerful narrative. And that's what D.W. Griffith's championed. I'm kind of pulling that apart and rethinking the role of media and culture. So that's kind of, you know, the art statement.
I love that. And I imagine that it was a process for you. How did you even approach doing something like this?
Well, I collect records, and I've actually worked with quite a few people in California. One of my favorite groups is Boots Riley. He did a film out of Oakland called Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah.
He's a legendary Oakland MC. I've produced work with him. But when you think about a narrative, hip hop tells you a story. It's a poem that enlightens, creates new visions of how history of that person's narrative. But I'm DJing and taking voices from blues and jazz and sampling them and mixing it with classical, you know, film soundtrack stuff. I'm a big fan of Hans Zimmer, for example, and some of his scores, especially what he did with Dune, for example. So DJing is, you're telling stories with beats, you know, so instead of being an MC, you take a rhythm, you sample it, you cut it up. That's become a global vocabulary. And from Germany to China, Russia, India, Japan, you name it, kids are listening to electronic music. And a lot of that comes from the African-American experience in places like Detroit, Chicago, and New York. So I wanted to tell a story with rhythms, but by doing that, pull the story apart of this very toxic and very problematic film.
Yes. Well, Paul, this sounds so awesome, and I just appreciate you putting all of this effort into sharing this with the community, and we cannot wait to see it. So if you want tickets, go to silentfilm.org. Paul, DJ Spooky again, thank you so much.